postpone the 2020 referendum. Mr. Speaker and distinguished members of the House of Representatives, we have the honor, most respectfully, to present to you and members of the House of Representatives of the Republic of Liberia profound compliments of the Grassroots Alternative Movement game, hoping that this request meets you all in good health. The Grassroots Alternative Movement game, as a registered institution, is a social justice, political, and advocacy organization. Mr. Speaker, distinguished members of the House of Representatives, GAME writes to request the Honorable House of Representatives to postpone the pending referendum. GAME further requests that if the referendum is postponed, the Honorable Legislature should set up a new Constitution Committee to revise the current Constitution to meet the aspiration of the Liberian people. The reasons for these requests are as follows. 1, why the senatorial election should not be combined with the referendum. If the senatorial election and the referendum are held together, the senatorial election will take away the meaning and enthusiasm of the referendum. The senatorial election is the single highest subject of national discussion at the moment. The referendum will definitely become a side issue with very less interest. In that case, one does not have to be a rocket scientist to know that there will be a very low turnout for the referendum, as we saw in the last referendum that was held in 2011. As such, GAME believes that if any of those crucial propositions passes, it will not meet the mandate of the Liberian people. Not only that, but it is also possible that none of those propositions may even receive 2/3 votes as required. GAME believes that the National Elections Commission does not have the requisite time frame to its disposal and full capacity to adequately educate and inform Liberians, especially eligible voters, on the propositions, steps, and procedures of the senatorial election and the referendum. The NEC has depended on short-term awareness and sensitization activities during electioneering periods. Although this strategy has worked to a certain extent for regular elections, we believe the education associated with the referendum is much more complicated and requires adequate preparation. We are all aware the country does not have a national mechanism in place with the capacity to conduct sustained civic education, particularly teaching the Constitution in keeping with Article 10 to make citizens aware of these constitutional matters in a way that they know their rights, roles, and responsibilities to contribute to the governance of the country. Article 10 of the 1986 Constitution provides that the Constitution shall be published and disseminated with its principles taught in institutions of learning across the country. Sadly, this has not happened, and gap therefrom has had serious implications for governance and growth of democracy in Liberia. The entrenched voter apathy in the country is a good example, and the forthcoming election and referendum, if held as planned, will also record a very low turnout, particularly for the referendum. It is worth noting that voting in a referendum with more than one issues, such as the one pending, is very complicated. The ballots don't carry human faces, as the case in regular elections. As an issue-based election, the ballots carry symbols with corresponding scripts to identify, read, and vote. With the very limited time frame for education, information dissemination, mobilization of resources, and development of logistics, Combining this senatorial election and this important referendum is impossible. Forcing the senatorial election and the referendum together may actually undermine the referendum, thereby defeating the crucial national decisions as enshrined in the referendum proposition: dual citizenship, reduction of tenure of the president, vice president, and members of the legislature, and the date of election. If we insist on holding this essential national decision-making process alongside the senatorial election, there's a high likelihood that we will not succeed. If this referendum is defeated as a result of low turnout or other reasons, it will be difficult to reintroduce these same propositions for future referenda. Learning from the recent past, the 2011 presidential and general elections that were combined with the referendum clearly defeated the purpose of the crucial propositions that were in the referendum. Liberians went to the polls on August 23, 2011 to vote to amend a proposal to reduce by half the 10-year residency requirement for presidential candidates, a proposal to change constitutionally mandated general election date, a proposal to extend the retirement age of judges from 70 to 75, and to amend a proposal that requires that elections to public office be won by a simple majority and not by absolute majority. Unlike the referendum, the elections attracted tremendous attention and took away attention from the referendum and made it a side issue completely. Political parties and candidates spent almost all of their time campaigning for the offices they sought with very limited or no interest in the referendum. It was the next civic education mechanism that tried to balance its education, information, and sensitization campaign for both events. Probably that was why some voters were even able to vote in the referendum. Of the total of 1.7 million registered voters, only 615,203 voted in the referendum. The NEC tabulated and counted the votes in the referendum and announced that none of the 4 propositions received the required 2/3 votes of the total votes cast. That was a complete failure and waste of resources. It was only through a ruling by the Supreme Court that proposition number 4, which required election to public office to be won by simple majority, to pass. Ignoring the experience of the 2011 general elections and referendum and heading into 2020 senatorial election and referendum will cost the nation another round of waste of precious time and resources. Right now, we are in a better position to prevent this from happening. Currently, the government is yet to mobilize and make available the needed financial resources for the referendum and the senatorial election. Although our dear partners have made some commitments to make some financial and technical contribution to the process, the application of such commitment to any portion of the referendum will be a complete loss. Besides, no ballots have been designed and produced yet. Civic and voter education materials have not been designed and produced. Regional consultations with citizens on the symbols and scripts for the ballots have not been conducted, and civic educators have not been recruited, trained, and deployed. The fact that these key activities have not happened, postponing the referendum should not be an issue. The proponents of holding the senatorial election and referendum argue for minimizing costs, but cost of conducting these elections without proper preparation is even greater. As we indicated above, we clearly saw this during the presidential and general elections, which were combined with the referendum in 2011. While we cannot ignore costs, we also believe that this referendum should not be too expensive. There are several cost-effective mechanisms, including the use of technology, that the government can deploy to drive costs down. GAME is prepared to offer assistance in this direction. Additionally, the NEC has functioning offices, storage facilities across the country, and sets of digital tools at its disposal. With these logistics, digital tools, and infrastructures, we should be able to significantly reduce the cost of elections, including the pending referendum if postponed. Once again, GAME emphasizes that we should never run the risk of jeopardizing our democracy by holding these critical electoral processes together because of cost. They are very consequential in our quest to improve governance and revitalize the economy to better the lives of the Liberian people. Why do we need a new constitution? GAME believes that many of the governance issues we are encountering today are due to the inadequacy or inappropriateness of many of the provisions of the 1986 Constitution. For the last decade and a half, there has been numerous efforts to amend a number of provisions of the current Constitution. For example, former President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf administration succeeded in undertaking and completing an elaborate constitution review process. The former president constituted a constitution review committee headed by former Chief Justice Gloria Muscat. The CRC meticulously conducted 73 inclusive public consultations when about 10,000 Liberians from 73 electoral districts in the diaspora, mainly the Republic of Ghana and the United States, participated. The final report of the review consultations reveals that over 16,000 views were collated, which produced 52,308 issues. Of these views and suggestions, 25 propositions were derived, upon which 500 Liberians representing various segments of the entire population converged in Banga, Bon County, in the National Constitution Reform Conference and voted. Those 25 propositions were submitted to the legislature to review and approve as issues for Liberians to vote on. Obviously, all of these efforts clearly suggest that something is seriously wrong with our Constitution that needs urgent attention. GAME believes that we can build on the great work done by the CRC to initiate a possible drafting and adoption of a new constitution to enhance our democracy, to meet our governance needs and set the stage for a better future that will be the best option. The manner and form of drafting our current constitution was very controversial. It is a fact that our current constitution was written under a military regime. There are several drafts. The Constitution overly empowers the presidency, almost introducing an imperial presidency through our democracy. Patching this national organic document in piecemeals will not solve our problems. Finally, Mr. Speaker and honorable members of the House of Representatives, GAME truly believes that postponing the December 2020 referendum and possibly considering the option for a comprehensive constitutional reform in the near future will be the best way in guaranteeing and sustaining our democracy. We cannot achieve this monumental task by amending the Constitution in parts or voting for proposition in bits and pieces. While anticipating the favorable response of our wonderful House of Representatives, please accept in advance our deepest gratitude for all that you do to make Liberia a better place for everyone.